Hi, 8th grade! All right, thank you guys so much for being on top of your work this past week. We survived week 1, so welcome to week 2. What we are doing this week is we're building on from last week. So, very easy. You know what vascular plant is, and you know what non-vascular plant is. If you're still stuck, you need to let me know so that we can zoom and we can break it down. What we're doing this week is we're building on what we learned last week. So now we're going to talk about seedless vascular plants and non-vascular plants and seed vascular plants. I know, a little confusing there. There's only one type for non-vascular, seedless. So I'm going to break it down. You're going to take some notes today, please, because these are going to be essential on your... I'll do a online quiz. Let's see, not this week, maybe next week. Let me check a little. It'll be next Friday. Okay, so it'll be completely online. You guys can use your notes. So that's why it's really important that you're taking your notes with me as we go. So let's break this down. And great job again for turning everything in. I'm here for you for anything that you might need. So get your notes out. I got my whiteboards because we love whiteboards. We're gonna start with seedless plants. I am basically, you can make a T-chart if that works for you, but for me, I'm going to put all the seedless stuff, like the non-vascular one, then I'll just move it over. So I'm going to do like one concept on each whiteboard. So if you want to make a T-chart or a 3-chart, more than welcome to, in order to keep it organized, okay? Or you can just do what I'm doing. So seedless, I'm going to put non-vascular. Okay, so NV. Just lost that. We're going to bullet point it. All right. Now, seedless, I want you guys to keep in mind. Remember, I'm going off my notes next door to me here. They can only reproduce using spores. So we are going to put that for all seedless. Reproduce using spores. Which means that it does not have the ability to make seeds. In order to keep it continuing to grow, it has to transfer its DNA and its cell material somehow through the spores that are found, in the parts of the plants. All right, so that goes for any kind of seedless, particularly for non-vascular. Okay, it's only a few cells thick. You guys probably found this out as you guys were doing your Venn diagram. Few cells thick because it has to be able to absorb water into those cells. H2O through cell wall. And I am really, if you notice through, I really made it shortened, so then that way I can write these out really quick and you guys can be with me. BC means because. Few cells thick because absorbs water through cell wall. Okay, seedless does not have the roots, so they have to find an alternative way to get that water in. So it's a very thin plant, actually, very little. Often lives in damp environments. That means it's wet. Doesn't even be soaking. All right. The cool thing is that seedless non-vascular plants are often the founders, the starters of a brand new ecosystem. So because they only require a couple cells to get started, and they can adjust, they adapt themselves into seed vascular plants eventually. They are what we call the founders, the original landscape of a brand new ecosystem. So that's what they're often found in those damp environments. So swamps, it was the seedless non-vascular plants that made it come to life. Well, we know it was God, but scientifically. A vocabulary word for you guys this week that some of you did pick up on in your Venn diagram, which was awesome, is rhizoids. Okay, rhizoids are just for seedless non-vascular plants. And these things are the tiny stream-like structures that helps the plants have some, well, helps anchor the plant. So it's tiny strings that anchor the plant. I'm going to make this a little smaller because I just realized I have a little bit more to write for you guys. Okay. Rhizoids, tiny stringy structures that anchor the plant. So these act very much like roots. The only difference is that they're tiny, just string-like. They're thin, but the roots are what absorb the water. So there we do have some differences. That's why it was very important last week that you found those couple differences. So this makes these seedless and seed plants very easy to distinguish between. Last thing for this one is that some examples of these types of plants are mosses, as some of you found out, liverworts, no, not the warts you find on your body, and hornworts. There you go. All right, so those are our notes for seedless non-vascular. They produce through spores. They're very thin, just a couple cells. The cell wall is what brings in the water. They live in damp environments. They are structured down by rhizoids, and they don't have roots. Examples of a couple of them. All right, moving on. Get a new color here. We're going to move into seedless vascular plants. Now, this they do produce in the same way, so we don't need to write that down again, unless you want to. Seedless V, seedless vascular. What's crazy, though, is that there's not very many of these left around. It's like they've just basically gone off the planet because vascular plants have adapted themselves to become living off of seeds. But here are the couple of notes for you. Some example are ferns. So we do have ferns still around. Ground pines. So they're like pine trees, but they're just the pine plants, basically. They look like the pine leaves, but they just are little plants that come out of the ground. Horsetails, very much like cattails, except a little bit more fluffy and longer. And spike mosses. These are the ones we still have around today. Okay, now they are very thin, okay, but these vascular plants are actually grow larger because, remember the BC, it's because they have structures to distribute the water and the nutrients. H2O and nutrients. Okay, so the non-vascular are thinner and they're shorter, guys, because there's not, I mean, think of moss. It just grows on trees and it's not very thin, or it's not very tall, but it can take over a huge area. Seedless vascular ones are much taller because we're starting to get that structure put into place because we're starting to adapt into being able to adapt to have roots. So these ones, ferns, are going to be taller than the non-vascular. Not very much, but they're not being held down by roots. They're being held down by the stringy structures. And that is it for our seedless ones. Now remember, seedless vascular have pretty much gone non-existent. There's very few that exist today, and those 4 are the ones that are primary. Okay, so new color. Now we're going to get into seed vascular plants. There are no seed non-vascular, so that should make it a little bit easier. But this one, CV, this one we're going to have a little bit more detail to go into. If I'm going too fast, you can always stop this video and go back and hit on any key points you have. If you're confused, write down that question next to that part in your notes, and then that way you can take a picture or send me that question and I'll be right there to help you out. Annie did a great job sending me a great question last week, and I was like, oh, okay, well, let's look that up. And you never know. I might pop out and say, you know what, that's going to be worth 500 lab points because you came up with a question that I didn't even think about. So moving on to seed vascular plants. Now, these reproduce. The reproductive units is what we call them. So each plant is able to reproduce. When we say unit, it means each one. Unit means one. Reproductive units that adapt to land. They're not found in those watery, swampy areas, besides the trees that are in swamps. In the seeds, store food, as you might have noticed with sunflower seeds, and they have a protective coating. So this is one big bullet point. You hear my alarm clock right there. No, my cuckoo clock. Okay, so vascular seed plants, they're reproductive units that adapt to land, so they pretty much have learned how to live on land. They're able to reproduce, each single one of them, and they have seeds, and the seeds are what store food, or it's one way we store food, not we, the plants, and it also has a protective coating. So it's not going to be like all that nutrients and everything in the food that's really important is not just going to be sitting there on the plant. They have adapted to be able to save those. That's why seeds are so nutritious for us and so good for us, because there's nutrients in each one, basically. Let's see. There are two types of seed vascular plants, and some of you have picked up on these in our previous months. Gymnosperms and angiosperms. Oops, misspelled that word. I do apologize. Okay, so here's how you spell them. There are two types, gymnosperms and angiosperms. Now, to really help you out, okay, angio means flower. All right, so we're going to write flower underneath it. And that's how you can tell the difference between what type of plant, vascular seed plant, it is. If it has a flower, so basically if it has a flower before it becomes a fruit, so seeds are in the fruit, then it's angiosperm. If there is no flower, then it's a gymnosperm, which means that the seeds for that plant are not in fruit. And you'll see in one of your enrichment activities, I've actually uploaded a PowerPoint. So if you go towards the end of the PowerPoints, you can play with your parents or somebody in your family, or even like somehow try to do it online with each other, that you can actually guess which one's which, gymnosperm, angiosperm. For gymnosperms, you'll notice that when it doesn't have flowers and it doesn't have fruit, where do the seeds get stored? Well, guys, it's simply right there on the leaves. If you've ever seen a pine cone tree, what are pine cones? They're seeds. Literally, they're seeds. So that's a great example of a gymnosperm. It's just out in the open. Angiosperms means that it's a flower that's prepping and has now become a fruit, and now the seeds are stored safely inside the fruit. I know, right? Isn't that crazy? There are three things that a vascular seed plant will have. This is another identification. They have leaves, stems, and roots. There you go. Okay, so we have what is it, the two types, and now three pieces of evidence that show, hey, that is a seed plant, vascular. So I know that it's going to have to suck up the water and nutrients from the ground and has roots. The leaves, just to give you a couple more definitions, this is where photosynthesis happens. We'll learn about that next week. So you might hear the phrase in some of your enrichment activities, photosynthetic ability. That means that they're talking about the seed vascular plants, because it can soak up the sun and it turns it into energy and oxygen, yeah, and we'll learn about all that next week. So photosynthesis happens on the leaves, and also there are different shapes So like needles, and then we have the flat ones. It depends on what environment it is and if it needs to protect the seeds. So if it's a gymnosperm, then it has to be more spiky, the leaves, because it's trying to protect its seeds. Now if it's not a gymnosperm, it's probably going to have the flatter and looser edges and much softer leaves because it doesn't have to protect those seeds as much. And every leaf has some type of waxy layer. And the waxy layer is to protect the, it's to protect the plant, the leaves, basically. So when an animal goes and eats it, it's going to like taste that waxiness and it's going to be like, oh no, I don't want anything to do with this. So the different shapes, the waxiness, I mean, leaves have great adaptation. Plants have great adaptations to protect its seeds, its ability, its plants, whatever, its leaves, whatever it can do. Now stems, what are they there for? Support. Basically, that tree's going up. It needs some kind of way to protect its leaves and everything, so the branches go out, so then that way it can balance itself out really good. And the stem is also what helps anchor it. Sorry, not anchor it, but help it keep its structure. So it's a lot thicker than the leaf. The roots are what absorbs, as we've been going through. It absorbs water, gases, and nutrients. You're thinking gases, carbon dioxide. And it also provides structure. So the roots is what holds it in the ground. Stem gives it support, structure, holds it, support, and then the prettiness of it all. So once again, if you need to stop this video, go for it. Okay? And that's it for your notes this week. That's all we have. So we've learned about the difference between non-vascular and vascular plants, and now we've broken it down to the seed and seedless types of plants. What we're doing next week is we're going to be building more on that, and we're going to talk about cellular respiration and photosynthesis. How does that all come into play in the structure and development and the adaptations to keep plants and everything alive? Now remember, the reproduction when it comes to seedless plants is that it happens to the spores. So it basically sucks it in. But for a seed plant, you must have 2 individual plants in order to pass the DNA off and to make the seeds actually happen. Now, let's recap for the week. Okay, this is what I expect to have done. Okay, 1, check your vocabulary because you guys do have vocabulary, so it's going to be a build on from last week and this week. 2, sorry, take your notes because you can use this for open note quiz. 3, there is no extra experiment this week, so no experiment challenge. What I want to encourage you guys to do is go do enrichment activities. So there will be 4 brand new ones up that you can pick from, and then if you pick one of those, you can use it for your lab points. Guys, you are so close right now into 2nd place to beating the 1st place people. By the end of this week, I will show you guys where every single class is at. But great job. Keep doing those enrichment activities, those experiments, everything. The last thing is your homework for this week. That's due to me by Friday. I'm uploading a tic-tac-toe board. It has 9 choices. No, don't freak out on me and go, I have to do all 9 or I have to do tic-tac-toe. No, okay? Pick 2 of them and do them. Some of them are very similar. Like literally you can do the seed plants and the seedless plants on one activity and you're done. All right? Due to me Friday. Your enrichment activity though, one of them is do a 3rd thing. That could be your experiment and you can get lab points for that. Or if you want to say, no, I want to do a 3rd one, I want extra points on my assignment or your quiz, I'll be more than happy to do that because you're taking this time to dig a little deeper into the subject without me being there. Basically because if we had every day this week to actually do experiments and stuff, we would be digging deeper into everything and actually doing more hands-on and whatnot. So that's a lot being said. So keep track of all your stuff you have to do. It's going to be the exact same as last week. The only thing added this time is your vocabulary. So it's a combination of last week and this week. And I want to highly encourage you to do those enrichment activities so that you guys can keep getting those lab points and whatever you need. If you need me, you can keep emailing me with questions, which you guys have been doing great for. Parents have my phone number, so if you need to text me or if you need to FaceTime me, that's fine. Just make sure it's on your parents' phone. Zoom calls can be set up, or Zoom meetings, and you can be just you and me, or it can be a couple kiddos together, just going over. If you guys actually want to do the homework together, that's fine. Or if you guys just want to, hey, let's get together with Mrs. Greenwald and let's just chit chat about random stuff we always do. Okay, so you're not fifth grade, you're eighth grade. Eighth grade, I miss you guys. I cannot wait to see you. It is breaking my heart that I can't spend my last couple weeks with you guys, especially because this is your last time here at Crown of Life. But know that you guys are in my prayers, and you have been an amazing class, and I'm really sad that I'm not spending more in face-to-face time with you guys. So, oh, and if you put a orange triangle at the top left corner of your paper, this homework paper this week, you will get an extra 10 points. Have a great week. Bye.